Hey, Tiffany.
Hey, Kat.
It's been a minute.
I know.
Um,
Welcome back.
yeah, welcome back. I'm glad to see you.
Same.
Season 5. This is crazy.
Oh my God, that's insane.
We're starting with travel and transportation, and I got a wonderful 5-page research piece here that probably doesn't cover enough, but we're starting with electric vehicles. Yep.
Yeah, because man, that's a big topic.
Yeah, and I'm sure we're going to get a lot of reader feedback, but this is going to be, we're answering a question. So,
Oh, cool.
my intro, as I wrote it, because we're writers. If you've ever dipped a toe in green living and eco-friendly culture, you've probably heard two sides to the electric vehicle debate from someone, somewhere, at some time. Some people think EVs, electric vehicles, are the only hope to stop climate change caused by human-made carbon emissions. Others argue that electric vehicles are way worse for the environment than gas-powered cars because of how the batteries are manufactured and disposed of. So what's the truth? Should you rest your hope in EVs or let them pry your gas-powered vehicle out of your cold, dead hands? Welcome to Greening Up My Act.
That sounds like insanely loud to me. Is that just me?
No, it might be.
Okay.
We've got high-powered music this season.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know why it was so loud.
Yeah, we're
Anyway.
doing a couple changes. If you're watching us on YouTube, you're going to see that I am poorly lit because I've changed my computer and the camera settings are different. And
Yeah, we're having technical
oh
issues.
my gosh, can't even blame Mercury in retrograde. I think I don't know. Yeah, everything's messed up this season, but yeah, well, I'm so stoked to be back. I have missed you.
I know. Me too. I've been like, first off, trying to get my shit together.
Yeah,
Get organized, and I've been doing a pretty decent job with it, all things considered.
you're
So,
lucky. I have
yeah,
no organization. So
you know, batching,
yeah,
and this
that's
works
smart.
for. I think this could work for anything. Batching, it's really great, actually. It's like I think it's one of those. I don't know if I have ADHD or whatever. We've talked about that a little bit. But if you have a hard time focusing, I think, or doing like a task that feels too big,
Yeah,
that's what I'm realizing. Like maybe I should just batch my whole life.
split it up. Right. Well, fair.
So, like do all the alike items at once. So
That's smart. All the pink ones. I do that with my Skittles, so why wouldn't I do that with my?
there you go.
But
Skittles
yeah,
are a hard task for sure.
yeah, they are 5 colors. But yeah, in our podcast this evening, I think we should say, who the hell are we?
Oh yeah. So we are two people, but also we're two marketing writers
Not lizard people,
and
people.
not lizard people. How do you know?
Oh, it's true. I haven't. Well, I'm not. I will go with that.
Okay, okay. No comment. Anyway, so yeah, we're marketing writers. So we kind of see supposedly green products and green brands that are just sort of making up all this fluff. And sometimes it's not fluff, but sometimes it's really fluffy. And we kind of see it and we're kind of annoyed by it. And we're kind of looking at it like, is that real? Is that true as humans? But then also we look through our marketing lens of, these words don't mean anything, and I've used them before, so
Yes, yes.
I kind of can see.
Website SEO words that you use to get clicks. And, yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
So we personally feel like we want to try and live more sustainable lives as much as we can. And so we take a look at these products that are geared towards people who are like-minded, and we say, is this really worth it? Is this,
Mm-hmm.
you know, can you afford it? Can you make the change? Will it really make a difference, in how your carbon footprint, which is a term that we will have to delve into at some other point as well, but
Mm-hmm.
how does that affect? And I think cars are a big one, and a lot of people want to make changes. Transportation is a big one, and we'll get into that in some of the numbers, which are crazy.
Yeah, so
But
this is season 5. We're talking about travel and transportation and other interesting things that we were interested in around that topic. So,
Yeah. So I'm going to answer a very specific question tonight, but first I wanted to get into our sources. And the big one I had was an NPR article that came out a few weeks ago. EV batteries hurt the environment, but gas cars are still worse. If that tells you where I'm going here.
okay.
And then the article you sent me from the Atlantic, the best hope for electric cars could be the GOP districts where they're made, which is interesting.
Ah, yes, that was an interesting one.
Yeah. And then my sister, who we all know is a rocket scientist for NASA, she's kind of invested in a lot of this too. She sent me a couple of really interesting articles. One of them was from the Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy, and it was the U.S. National Blueprint for Transportation Decarbonization. Um, then USA Facts, a website, had what are the main sources of greenhouse gas emissions? I have more than five sources tonight. I'm sorry.
Oh, me too. Don't worry.
Yeah, I feel like we kind of had to with these because they're so huge.
Yeah, they're big topics. Yeah, we try
Yeah,
to limit it to 5, but
yeah. Keep
it's
ourselves sane, but sometimes
not
we
always
can't.
working.
And then I went to CarMax, which is a car dealership
hmm
online.
I've bought stuff from them.
Me too. Electric cars versus gas cars, what's the difference?
Okay.
And then CNBC had an article on the poor resale values of EVs threaten adoption, warn some experts. I will say probably a lot of these, other than the Office of Energy Efficiency and USA Facts, these are, well, NPR technically isn't left-leaning, and CarMax obviously isn't left-leaning, but CNBC and The Atlantic are kind of left-leaning.
Yeah.
I didn't go into the other side. I didn't look at Fox News. I mean, I did, but I didn't find their information helpful. I thought it was debunked in the NPR article. So just
Okay.
out there. Because I definitely have heard conservative people say, well, and the question we'll get to here, yes, electronic vehicle batteries are worse for the environment. Period. They are.
You've heard people say that. Yeah.
I have, well, and it's the truth. That is the truth. But let's dig in. So I want to say
Oh,
yeah, yeah,
cliffhanger.
yes. First, I wanted to say I'm focusing on electric vehicles, EVs, not hybrids. That's a whole,
Okay.
they're another fish to fry. I'm also focusing specifically on the US government's plans to decarbonize transportation, specifically the drive to replace gas-powered cars with electric vehicles by 2050. So
Okay.
that is a stated task that I believe President Joe Biden has signed.
Okay.
That's one of his things, and a lot of people were like, "What the hell?" Um, Will it be better for the environment if we replace all gas-powered cars with electric vehicles by 2050? That's the question I'm asking. Would it work? So, according to the Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy Blueprint, again, thanks to my sister Julia, changing over to zero-emission vehicles for cars, as well as commercial trucks, transit, boats, and airplanes. Now, again, I'm focusing on consumer light. They call them light vehicles, right?
Yeah,
Daily
I saw
drivers
that.
for people. Yeah. So changing over to electric for these will have the biggest impact on reducing emissions. That's their stated truth. Okay. 49% of transportation emissions come from these light duty vehicles, like the cars that we individuals drive on a daily basis. So the government's plan to address this includes having 50% of new vehicle sales be zero emission by 2030. That's in 6 years. Deploying 500,000 EV chargers around the country, and ensuring that 100% of federal fleets are zero emission by 2027. So that means police vehicles, any, daily use government driver cars,
Okay.
any field vehicles, those will all be electric vehicles by
Okay.
20.
Because zero emission equals electric.
Okay. When we say zero emission, that's my next part. I am taking this to mean electric. So they do list other sources of non-carbon fuel. For instance, hydrogen.
Okay.
There are
Okay.
sustainable liquid fuels. But you can't really do a hydrogen power on a light duty vehicle, and there's not much on sustainable liquid fuels for them yet. So based
Okay.
on our current
Would the
technology,
hydrogen just send it into outer space?
I think so. I think it's just we can't scale it to be,
Okay.
you can
Gotcha.
do larger vehicles with it apparently, but yeah, I think it's just
Okay.
the amount of space it takes to make hydrogen fuel work, and
Yeah,
probably
okay.
safety issues just wouldn't. Also, electric vehicles, as they've been developed, are, it's easy to get fuel for them. You just plug them in. We already have electricity. We have an electric grid. We don't really have a hydrogen grid, so it's kind of
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah, all those things. And I didn't study hydrogen. I'm sure somebody's going to be like, that's not how hydrogen power works. And I'm like, you're correct. I have no idea. I'm talking about electric vehicles tonight, though. So, yes,
Get off our backs.
yes, this is just about electric vehicles. And the question, are they worse for the environment? And will it change things? So, gas-powered vehicles and carbon emissions was my next section. It's no secret that gas-burning vehicles emit carbon, right? So, what is the effect of our daily commutes or our drives to Target on carbon emissions? According to that USA Facts article, a normal passenger vehicle puts out 4.6 metric tons of carbon dioxide a year. So, with 1.4 billion cars on the road in the US in 2021, the last time we have data for it, this meant a metric ton for every 2,500 miles driven.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So, that's
For every how many miles?
2,500 miles. So 10, let's say 10, if your car gets 250 miles a gallon, you know, or
Wow.
250 miles of fill up, that's every 10 times.
I was like, wow, that's a really
I
efficient
was like,
car.
shoot, that's a hybrid. No, that's better than a hybrid. Sorry. Yeah. So every 10 fill ups, you're basically putting a metric ton out.
Wow.
I mean, I think they say most people drive at least 10,000 miles a year.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think 10,000 is pretty low in this country.
yeah, probably more like 15,000. So that,
Yeah.
you're probably putting out, if you're driving 10,000 miles a year, you're putting out 4 metric tons of CO2. They know
It's
that
kind of hard to like think about what that even means because
Yeah.
I'm like, it sounds like a shitload, but what do I compare it to?
Yeah, I don't really have a scale for that either.
No, I know. I'm just
I
saying.
should have, yeah. They note that in 2021, 94% of transportation energy came from diesel, which you're going to talk about next episode, or gasoline. So this also includes planes, trains, trucks, etc. So most of the things that we use for
Wait, what
transportation,
was that percentage?
94%. So we've only got 6% of the things on the road or in the sky that get us places or move goods. 6% do not use gasoline or diesel. That's it.
Okay.
So like everything we do is gas burning or diesel burning.
Okay.
Okay, so now the big question. Are EVs worse for the environment because of the batteries? That's the big claim. The question
Yeah.
that has come up ever since the first Prius came out in the US in 2000 was, is creating an electric battery for your car worse for the environment than just gas? Creating a gas car. Okay, the answer is yes. More specifically, building an electric vehicle does more harm to the environment than building a gas car.
Building it.
Building it, right.
Okay.
This is because the materials needed to make batteries have to be mined. That's the problem. That's where most of the footprint is coming. Mining is full of problems. Pollution through runoff, heavy machinery use. It also disrupts habitats. Obviously, you've got to mine somewhere. We have that problem with oil and gas drilling too, but I won't get into that right now. Mines, especially in developing countries, are known to violate workers' rights, cause a lot of destruction among people who work for them. They don't have safe conditions. They poison the workers. They poison the nearby people who live around them. And they also obviously trample on the rights of indigenous communities. We don't care where we get our lithium from. We're going to mine under your reservation or your village or your...
Right.
Okay, so yes, mining is worse for the environment than to create an electric vehicle battery, it's worse for the environment. At the
Okay.
start. But then it gets complicated. So, EVs are better for the environment over time. According to NPR, if you look at car usage, EVs are better for the environment than gas-powered vehicles overall. Even if you take all the other stuff about EVs into consideration, like where the electricity comes from to charge them, if you have a coal power plant, what kind of car it is, all of that taken into consideration, EVs are hands down a better option.
Okay.
So, like I was just saying, gas is also mined. It's a mined commodity. It's a processed commodity. You have to extract petroleum from the earth continuously to keep up with the demand to fuel vehicles. Plus, oil causes similar issues to mining, like oil spills or the corruption associated with the oil and gas industry, which we have discussed at length.
What do you mean?
Uh, Not to mention government regimes that are funded by oil,
Right.
or oil and gas companies doing shady shit like lying to us about recycling plastic.
Mm-hmm.
So cars that use gasoline need that fuel continuously over the life of the vehicle, whereas an EV's battery is only built one time.
I never
So
thought about that, yeah.
yeah, that damage, that destruction is really bad. But when you look at the full lifespan of the car, gas-powered vehicles do a lot more damage to the environment over time.
Okay.
Another thing CarMax pointed out is that EVs turn 77% of the energy they take directly into power for the car. They're more efficient. Gas cars are way less efficient. They only use up to 30% of their energy from the gasoline. So all of that combustion that's going on in the engine, way less efficient, which you can also see.
Okay.
I think that's why EVs are so much faster,
Oh, that's interesting.
is because it's just straight power to the engine rather than, 30 or 70% of it being lost to, burning and other factors.
That's really interesting. Yeah. Joe is really into the idea of an electric vehicle. It's just, I'm sure we'll get into it, but the
Yes.
price.
Yes.
But there's one that's like the Mustang, but it doesn't look like a Mustang, but I think it's
Right.
the Ford's version of the electric car, and he's like kind of obsessed with it. Apparently,
They're
it's
fast.
really, really fast. Yeah.
They're real fast. Yeah, Teslas are fast. They just go, you know. So even if you're powering your electric vehicle from a coal plant, you're still not using up as much dirty energy as a gas-powered car.
Okay.
The average
Good to know.
annual emissions from a gas vehicle are 4.5 times higher than an electric vehicle. Again, because the emissions come from charging, right? That's gas vehicles do not emit carbon. The way that they get their power, plugging it in, the way that that power is generated, that's where the carbon emissions come from. So,
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
yeah. Now again, the materials in EVs that are used for the batteries, such as nickel, cobalt, and lithium, can also be recycled. You can't recycle gasoline.
What do you mean?
Yeah. Uh-huh. The bottom
That's
line is,
interesting. How do you?
yeah,
Rec-
go ahead.
oh, cause so you just like recycle the whole battery, and then
Yeah,
somebody
they
can.
take it apart and reuse it for other
Huh.
things.
I
Yeah.
didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't get very deep into that. There's probably a lot to be talked about there. And it's one of the things the article that you sent me from The Atlantic talked about was that the places that are processing, recycling EV batteries are all in the South, in the United States,
Right.
or in other states that tend to vote for Republicans. But anyway, the bottom line here is EVs are actually better for the environment than gas-powered vehicles, full stop. Bottom line. But there's more to the story.
Oh.
So I think here is a good place to take a break.
Okay. Awesome.
Welcome back. One of
Yes.
the things we always consider in greening up my act is how feasible it is for someone to use the product or service we're talking about. And as you mentioned previously, cost is one of our biggest concerns. So we've already established that switching to an EV will cut down on your personal carbon footprint over using a gas-powered vehicle over the long haul, period. But what about the cost?
Yeah.
So this gets complicated too. I went over to CarMax and asked what the differences were between EVs and gas cars. So in terms of pricing and cost, it's hard to compare the initial cost of a car, EV or otherwise. They are all over the place right now. From my research, an average new electric vehicle is about $48,000,
Yep. I was gonna say 50.
which is a down payment on a house as far as I'm concerned.
Seriously. Maybe not
But
these days, but yeah, pretty much.
That's the average cost of a new gas-powered car too. So the price of a used EV is all over the place. So the CNBC
Wait. Did you say 48,000 is the average cost of a gas-powered car?
Yeah, from what I looked, and it was different everywhere I looked. Like,
Oh my god.
but yeah, they're all over $30,000. Now, EVs
Yeah.
might be slightly more expensive. CNBC reported that used EVs have lost their resale value and are now reselling for almost 32% lower than
Hmm.
previously, while used gas cars have only lost 3.6% of their value in the same time. So
Hmm.
people aren't able to resell their EVs at the same level that you could resell a gas car. So that's a consideration.
I wonder why.
I, yeah.
To be honest, one of the things that is holding me back, aside from the price for an EV right now, is that I feel like it's sort of like a computer. Like you buy a computer, and then 3 years from now, the technology is so outdated that it feels really old and laggy. So,
I think that's part of it.
yeah, I don't know. I
Everybody's
don't know,
kind
but
of
that's why
waiting
I
for
would
the next
hesitate.
development.
Uh
Well,
huh.
okay. And I think I'll get into that a little bit too. But some other costs to consider. So, CarMax reports that an EV will save a person about 6,000 to 10,000 each year compared to a gas-powered car.
Hot damn.
Mosher, it's cheaper to charge a battery than it is to fill up the car with gas.
Yeah, gas
Electric,
is going up
yeah,
again.
yeah, it was down for a while, but yeah. Um,
Interesting.
and then there's tax credits. So there's
Mm-hmm.
still a federal tax credit of 7,500 for a new EV, 4,000 for a used one, so you get some cash back
Oh,
there. And also some local or state programs may also offer a rebate for installing a charging station or for getting an EV. So
okay.
then you don't have to pay at the charger, you pay at your house. That's saves you time and effort too than having to drive out to a
Mm-hmm.
gas station anytime you need.
And the rebate depends on the car type, right?
I believe so. Car type, whether it's new or used, also what state you live in, the amount you can get
Yeah,
back.
I thought I read somewhere that like Biden cracked down on it's like you had to have a certain percentage of your manufacturing done in the United States or something.
That's also a thing. China, I think that's a new initiative that
Yeah,
trying to encourage the U.S.
because
to
when we
get
looked like
EVs.
6 months ago, just out of curiosity, it was like, oh, there were only a certain number of the big. I don't think Teslas have a tax credit, but I might be making that up. Don't quote me on that.
They're built here mostly.
Well, that's true. I always think of them as not here, but
I know that the plants down the street just laid off 2,700 people. So
oh my lord,
yeah,
that's
I
awful.
mean, the economics around EVs are insane right now because they're
Yeah,
really
well, maybe
popular.
yeah, maybe it wasn't Tesla then. But I was thinking of some of the bigger ones. I was like, oh, like maybe one of the like Toyota or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
I can't
probably
remember,
Toyota
but
or the
I was just kind of
plants.
surprised that oh, there's no tax credit on that thing.
Yeah, maybe a Ford. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean that's the other thing. The political battle over them is really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Another consideration is maintenance costs. So EVs have lower maintenance costs because they're not as complicated as a combustion engine. You don't
Hmm.
need to get an oil change, for instance. There's fewer moving parts. So the Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy found that EVs cost 4 cents less per mile to maintain, which adds up to about $8,000 over 15 years. Again,
Wow.
that's the long haul. It's like 4 cents a mile. Doesn't
Yeah.
sound like much, but in terms of
Interesting.
maintenance, yeah.
Okay.
Now, another issue that a lot of people have with EVs is range.
Yeah.
So range anxiety is a big thing. I have a friend who bought a Rivian recently, and she is a big road tripper, and she was like, I don't know. You can't really take like that long road trip, across the country without a lot of planning. It
Yeah.
takes 2 minutes to fill a car with gas, right? Max 2 minutes. You pump, you done. It can take 8 hours to fully charge an EV at home or 20 minutes at a fast charging station. But you have to
Oh.
know where those fast charging stations are. Gas stations are, I mean, sometimes I've been driving across like North Dakota or Montana and been like, okay, even New
I'm almost
Mexico.
out of gas.
Yeah, where was the last gas station? Do I need to go back?
Yes.
So that's even worse with chargers because they are less frequent than gas stations currently. Of course, you can solve this problem by using apps and websites to map out where fast charging stations are. However, you have to hope they're not busted when you get there. My dad was recently talking about a lot of these fast charging stations have been ransacked for the copper.
Oh no.
So, and like anything that doesn't require a person to watch over it, human beings are awful to them. So, have you
Just
ever like,
inherently awful.
yeah, there used to be on the bike path in Albuquerque, there was this great little bike maintenance place where you could refill
Uh-huh.
your tires, and like it
Yeah.
was always broken because people are just awful to things that are free.
Oh, sigh. If it helps, we have a bike thing like that and it's not broken. I don't know if
Oh,
that
that's
helps, but
well,
it
maybe New Mexicans are
exists.
just awful.
Good
Yeah.
people
Well,
exist.
and
I
I
don't
think
know.
also people have there have to be people to maintain them, you know.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And in remote locations, who's going to do that? So,
Yeah, that's a real bummer. I didn't know about that.
yeah. But another consideration is if you're using this for a daily driver, you probably aren't driving 350 miles in a single day,
Yeah.
right? Like you don't fill your car up every day, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you have a really horrible commute, and I'm sorry. But if you're using an EV as your daily commuter, you don't have to worry about charging it on your way into the office, right? You just
Mm-hmm.
kind of get in and go. Another issue, towing is still not something EVs are very good at.
Okay.
I don't have a boat. I don't move heavy lumber. I don't know, but they do have great torque, which makes them super fast, and they can haul heavy loads, but they lose range really quickly.
Ah.
So you're not going to tow your boat to the lake 200 miles away with your Rivian on one charge, you know.
Okay.
It just that's the other thing. Similar to a gas-powered car, your range changes depending on how fast you're going, what the temperature is, if you're using your air conditioning. So it's not like you have a full charge and you know you're going to get 350 miles. If it's a hot day or a cold day, that range could change. Cold especially affects electric vehicles. So, oh, and
Okay.
lithium iron batteries have trouble charging in extreme cold.
Oh, right. I've heard about this.
Yeah, and the reason is because the battery has to use energy to increase its temperature so it will function, which means that it can't use that power for the car.
Okay. Okay.
So an EV might not work as well in Minnesota in January as it would in Texas in August, right?
Right. Unless you
You,
have a really warm garage.
yeah, exactly. You could charge it in your garage maybe, but it still won't have as much range as it would in warmer places or normal
Mm-hmm.
temperatures. So
Mm-hmm.
those are some considerations that I think a lot of people have issue with. Some more bonuses of electric cars, though, from my research. They're faster, as I
Mm-hmm.
said. They have better torque. That's why Teslas are always speeding angrily away from everyone else. They can just go. And it's like, why aren't you just going? And it's like, because I drive a manual
A
Hyundai that's
Hyundai.
underpowered. Yeah. Also, because they're basically big computers, they can get over the air updates called OTAs more efficiently than gas powered cars. So if you have an electric car, it's basically internet capable
Hmm.
immediately. Some EVs may get tweaks to how their systems work, updates to the software like throttle response, brake input, battery management, just over the air. I would have to take my car in to get a tune-up for that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Wow.
this means you basically have your car serviced from the comfort of your home without having to go into the shop. It's just done over the internet.
That is so interesting. And I know I heard a lot of people complaining that I think it's the electric vehicle manufacturers or the dealerships, I can't remember which one, um, were they were pissed off. Well, people were pissed off because it seemed like regular mechanics weren't getting the information that they needed to fix electric vehicles and
That's,
hybrids also.
yeah, it's
And
always
so it's
true.
sort of like this weird gatekeeping thing. So
I
it's
I could
kind of
see
like,
that being a problem.
damn, what's going to happen with like regular mechanics if they can't fix this kind of car that we're
Well,
leaning toward, you know?
and I think there may be some created issue with that. Um,
Mm. But
similar
now it's like
to,
if they don't need to. I don't know.
yeah.
That's interesting.
I mean, it's kind of the hand wringing over self-driving vehicles, right?
Mm-hmm.
They probably it's probably going to put people out of work, like truck drivers, and eventually. But the thing is that what we don't realize is that this just means we create a whole new slew of work that needs to be done. You know, like people who can man electric vehicles from a drone situation, or yeah, it does mean we have to retrain people who have traditionally been mechanics to do other kinds
Mm-hmm.
of work.
And
Um,
we are not very good at
no,
that
we don't like that. So,
in this country.
no, we like holding on to old things. But,
Well, no,
we,
I meant more like offering training. That type
you're
of
right.
training is
You're right.
not, it's not, I don't know. At least from
Well,
my
or
perspective.
or paying for it, right?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. Yeah.
agreed.
But
But
who knows?
yeah, elevators used to be banned. They were extremely dangerous. And then they created the, self-sensing elevator, and then like no one dies in an elevator anymore. It used to be like a lot of people. I don't have the number off the top of my head, but like 200 people a year
Interesting.
would die in an elevator. And now it's like
Huh.
two will die in an elevator.
That's so interesting. I wonder if that's why some people are still afraid of elevators. It's like a past life thing.
They're kind of scary. Yeah. But they're not as scary as they were when human beings made
That's
them.
really
So,
interesting.
yeah, it's just
Wow.
like,
Okay.
but that's not a one-to-one thing with electric cars. I'm talking about self-driving cars, which is different.
Right, right, right.
EVs are held to the same crash standards as other cars. They're just as safe, possibly more safe if you take into consideration the fact that you can't turn your electric car on and suffocate in your garage. I mean, that's a thing. So, okay. But my next section I titled, It's the Economy, Stupid. One of the most interesting aspects of EVs is how they're affecting the economy.
Mm.
While most people who buy and drive electric vehicles live in blue states, Democratic voting leaning states or cities, the people who build the cars and handle the battery recycling, etc., are in red states.
Mm-hmm.
So, according to the Atlantic article you sent me, the states where EVs are being manufactured and create the most jobs are also the states that are most likely to vote for Donald Trump in 2024, who has promised to repeal the EV transition efforts the minute he gets into office. It's kind of shooting yourself in the foot there.
Sigh.
Because if we reduce the need for EVs, we reduce those jobs. And yeah, anyway. So,
Interesting. Okay.
this also fuels that issue you were talking about earlier. I love that I say fuel and we're talking about. Anyway.
I know.
This could mean that if you want an EV in the future, you're not going to be able to get an American-made one, at least not at a good price.
Mm.
Most car manufacturers will not be able to compete with China if they don't get the government-backed incentives to build EVs or recycle battery parts that they're getting from Democratic-led regimes.
Right. And China's
So,
making moves,
oh, they are,
right?
for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. Okay, so the last question was, should you get an EV? If you need a daily driver and you can afford it, yes, an EV is a better choice than a gas-powered vehicle. Also, there are things you can do to make sure you're getting an EV with the lowest impact. So we're talking about you're afraid that the creation of the battery is going to cause havoc. Look for a car with an LFP battery, which is made without cobalt. So Tesla Model 3 or Ford Mach-E both have LFP batteries.
Okay. I can tell Joe.
Yeah, sodium batteries may be an alternative to lithium in the future, but we're not quite there yet.
Okay.
And smaller cars also have smaller batteries, so less of an
Yes.
impact. This means less mining. You could opt for a used EV, which reduces your impact as well, which would make it more affordable and make up for some of the impacts of manufacturing. Because again, if you spread them out over time, it makes more sense. And you could also ask yourself, this was the one all of the articles came down to, as any good environmentalist says, do I really need a car?
You know?
Could
Well,
I bike?
okay.
Could I bike? Could I use public transit? Or could I walk where I need to go?
Yeah, for me, it is no to all of the above.
Yeah.
Wah, wah.
Yeah. And
I would. Some people do bike on my road, and it is like so
dangerous.
dangerous. I
Yeah.
can't believe they do it.
And that's something we're going to get into in this season is infrastructure for non-car stuff.
Oh my God, please. I've thought so many times about petitioning for a bike lane or like something, and I looked into it even, and it was like, oh my God, such a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
And probably not going to work. So
Well, but yeah.
you never know. Maybe we'll find something,
Yeah.
a good solution.
Well, I know we were talking about not doing granola ratings, which is our thing that we
I think
do.
we should.
Okay, so I did do
Yeah.
one. So our granola rating or green hui meter, as we sometimes call it, is we rate all of the products, services, whatever we're talking about, on a scale of 1 to 5 granolas. The crunchier, the better. So 1 being bad is soggy, 2 is mushy, 3 is chewy, 4 is crunchy, and 5 is break your tooth off, which is what we want in our granola. And
Always.
I gave electric vehicles a crunchy, so that's a 4 out of 5.
Okay.
I said the issues with infrastructure, such as charging stations, the initial harm to the environment, and the overall cost are not nothing. But EVs are still better than gas-powered cars, and currently our best hope for cutting down on that 49% of carbon dioxide emissions that needed to happen
Yeah.
10 years ago. So, and I also think that the technology can only get better. It's a conspiracy that Sean, my boyfriend, talks about, that why did they make electric vehicles have a range that's the same as the tank of gas on a car? They could have made it anything, you know? Couldn't you have made a bigger battery? Or, you know, like, why is it exactly 350 miles just like a tank of gas?
What's the conspiracy
Well, that they
or the theory?
that they want it to feel more like a gas-powered car, I think was part of it, or that also they want you charging it, like they want you to pay at the charging station. That's another thing, because they're going to lose money. I mean, the powers that be, the stock market, you know, anybody with money is going to lose money if oil and gas isn't used. So they're going to find other ways to generate it.
Oh,
right?
that's interesting.
Also, you know, convenience stores don't make their money off of gas. They make money off of you coming in and buying something. Not that I think convenience store owners have a lot of political sway or economic sway in this country. But, I mean, these are all things that go into the decision. I mean, car culture is much more than just what kind of fuel it uses.
Yeah.
So,
Huh. Okay.
I don't know. It's an interesting... I don't know why it's 350 miles, but...
Yeah. That is really interesting. Yeah, I know. So Joe's a car guy, and so I kind of see, like, God, he watches so many YouTube videos about, you look like you're drinking a giant beer, by the way.
I know it's water. I know it's my water
Okay.
glass. I use a beer
love
sign
it.
for my water glass. Yeah.
It is large. I love it. Yeah, I have a Stanley, but I didn't buy it. Don't judge
No,
me.
I know. I got what I was just smirking a few months ago about how I won't ever give.
Oh, never.
I don't give trends, and so my sister got me one for my birthday. So I also have a Stanley.
Yeah, Joe got it from his work, and I'm like, you know what? This
It's
ain't
pretty
bad.
nice.
It's
Yeah.
big. It is big, and I like it.
And it has a straw, which I like. So
Yeah, so I also have this Yeti, which it's good, but Yeti has a problem with making the insides. I think it's like their walls have to be too thick, so the actual amount of liquid it holds
Yeah.
is so minimal, and you're like,
Yeah.
done.
yeah.
So
I,
it will keep it cold for 100 years, but you're
Well,
going to be done within 2 seconds. So
apparently, something happened with this. I heard this third hand, but a woman's car set on fire, but the car was burnt to a crisp, but her Stanley survived.
I
and
think I saw that.
it still
on,
had
like,
ice in it.
TikTok or something. Yes.
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
like, yeah.
So
works.
crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how they do it. But anyway, those are our liquids. But
Yeah.
what the hell was I saying about cars?
Oh,
oh,
he
oh,
watches
oh.
a bunch of YouTube videos. And,
Yeah, he watches so many YouTube videos about like putting an engine together and all this stuff, and it actually blows my mind because it is such an art and such a science and all of the above, and it's like so unbelievably complicated
it
that
is.
it's really impressive. And so I
Yeah.
like totally get where people are coming from when they're a little bit nervous about EVs, but I also think like as a hobbyist, I mean it's hard to say from like mechanics, right? But as a hobbyist, you could still always have like a car.
Right. I mean, and it's the thing is that like we've only had cars for 100 years,
Right.
and
There's lots of other things to tinker with too
people still like horses
in the world. Yeah, exactly.
it's
So
not like they,
true.
I mean,
Horses went away.
just because they're not on the road every day doesn't mean that people aren't, or that they aren't like marvels of modern engineering, or that, they're
Mm-hmm.
not, they're still cool, you know?
Right.
It's just, it's like, yeah, when we stopped, like New York City in the 1890s was hell because of all of the
Mm-hmm.
horse poop on the ground. And our world right now is hell because of all of the carbon emissions that are ruining our environment. So,
Yeah.
yeah, we can still have them around, but they don't have to be in our
Our
face every
main
day.
daily.
Yeah.
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 Yep.
Why not make it better while we can, and still, we can still have, it's not like it's going to go away entirely.
Right. No, it's
So,
such a good analogy with the horses. Oh my God. I love it.
just anytime you see somebody complain, be like, yeah, do you like horse poop? Should we still have horses?
God, that's so perfect. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
so true. Very, very
So,
true.
I think EVs can only get better. I hope. I mean, oh, I have horrible theories. I'm not going to talk, not horrible theories, but comparing issues to history. And maybe I will talk about this, and it's going to be controversial. I wish I had this in my sources, but I read an article about the Nazi regime, and I am not going to compare any current regime to the Nazi regime. I do not think that that is adequate. But in terms of a lot of the reason that technology in the Nazi regime advanced the way that it did was because there was a fear that as the population grew, we would not have enough resources specifically to feed all the people on the planet, right? That was the great fear of that era. And because of this, specifically Hitler and Nazi Germany found ways to kill people off, to reduce the number of people. They spent money on war machines and mass killing machines. That was what they spent their time, energy, and science on. And it ends up, science actually figured out how to feed everyone. We don't do it for different reasons, but we can. We are fully capable scientifically of feeding the planet. And that short-sightedness, that misunderstanding of how science can develop is how a lot of governments shoot themselves in the foot. And so our one of our current short-sightedness is that we're not believing that science will be able to fix these problems. And instead of putting our time and effort into finding the science that can remove carbon from the air is one science that's really interesting. Or, make electric vehicles really perfect so that the batteries don't cause these problems. We are putting more effort into war machines and, you know, harming each other, you know, and it's a comparison, it's not one to one, but that we don't know what science is going to come up with, what breakthrough is going to happen very soon, possibly.
Yeah.
And so if we only look at what science currently has and say, well, we can't fix the problem, and instead we should have a political war over, it, we're gonna say climate change isn't real, and we're gonna make that a political rallying point rather than like a global effort. We're shooting ourselves in the foot
Yeah.
in a very similar way, and it will cause a lot of damage.
So you're saying that is one theory of Hitler's,
It was a yeah they
because
there
I
were a
think
lot of
a lot of
things
people would
behind it.
say he had different motives, but
It is actually one of the ones that was discussed, according to this article, quite a bit. Was and one of the reasons they chose the Jewish people was because they had a history of being hated. It was
Jesus Christ.
easy scapegoat. But they also wanted to wipe out other peoples. I mean, it was
Yeah.
this racial purity thing,
Yeah.
also came from the fact that we don't, the thought that we don't have enough resources. So we have to kill off everybody who doesn't meet our standard. I mean, and it obviously it's not that simple, but that
Mm-hmm.
was one of the major driving factors
Whoa.
that we don't think about. That like we also are prone to having these fears about
Mm-hmm.
our tribes, and our lifestyles. And instead of thinking about ways we could solve them globally, we find scapegoats, which could be people's, it could be thought processes, it could be,
Mm-hmm.
you know. Uh, so anyway, it was
I feel
really.
like I've been playing devil's advocate this whole time, and you're just
Oh no
like,
no,
bam, 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 bam. You're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. No, I
I'm not
love
saying
it.
you're
It's like,
wrong. Yeah.
no, but it's like so helpful because I'm like, duh. Like all of it makes so much sense because I'm like, but what about the people who like to tinker on
Oh,
engines?
but I love that Sean's one of them too, and
Right.
I have always dated guys who love cars, except Robbie, but that's another story. But
Yeah.
like, New Mexico, we have huge car shows and stuff, and I don't want that culture to go away. But at the same
Yeah.
time, like we can still have those and have cleaner air by
Right.
not having 1.4 billion cars on the road that aren't collector's items,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
every day. And
Yeah.
yeah, there's the people who collect and tinker on those real great cars aren't like it's not your daily driver, you know.
Yeah.
Your
Right.
Porsche is a once a weekend fun trip, right? It's not
Yeah.
so. But I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I also think that like this is all very nuanced and
Mm-hmm.
complicated. Like you can't even compare the cost of an EV to a gas powered vehicle one to one. There's too much, or the environmental impact again is not one to one.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
except it's got to be taken over the long term and how people use cars over a 15-year period. That's what we're looking at. So anyway, yeah, it was
Yeah.
interesting because it was something I've always kind of. I remember when Priuses came out and everybody was like, "It's just a status symbol. It's not actually better for the environment. It's just you
Oh
look
yeah, that
like
was all over
someone
the place.
who cares about the environment." And it's like, I do think once I can afford it, my next car will be an EV. And hopefully by the time that happens, it will be a better, yeah, like you're saying, like that computer that you have to trade in every 4 years. It'll be a better running,
Mm-hmm.
machine than what I
Yeah,
can
and
afford.
maybe the tech thing isn't even an issue.
Hmm.
I think I just am kind of ignorant about the technology that goes into it. So, yeah, like maybe it is just going to be a trade-in, whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
any cars like electric
Yeah.
windows, like some cars still don't have those. So it's
I
like
mean,
any car is going to be outdated at some
I,
point.
I drive a Hyundai Accent. It's a 2019 and it
Yeah, mine's 2019.
barely has a touch screen. It doesn't have any computer updates, no navigation. And
Yeah.
I'm not complaining about that. It still
Yeah.
drives, it does its
Mm-hmm.
thing. And I think EVs will be the same way. We think about them differently because we think, oh, they're new and we're skeptical of them. But it's like, I, I drive a manual, this thing, it's like you can barely get the Bluetooth to play music. It's not high tech. Anything I get will be an improvement over this.
Right.
I'm just thrilled it has a backup camera.
Yes,
So like
exactly.
that's amazing to me. But it also gets
Right.
40 miles to the gallon,
Nice.
which is better than my friend has a hybrid truck and her car doesn't get 40 miles a gallon. So
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, I'm sold. No, I mean like I said, we've looked into it a million times and we're like, oh, maybe we could swing it and we might be able to. Well, we can once Charlie's out of daycare. There we
That's
go.
the
That's our
cost.
goal.
Once kindergarten starts. And yeah, that's my thing is like if I could find like a Nissan Leaf,
Mm-hmm.
because I have trouble buying new cars. I don't love to do it. If I could find one, I don't like a big car. I don't want a Tesla. I like
Yeah.
small cars, like a Nissan Leaf or something. If I
Yeah.
could find one of those
Mm-hmm.
and trade mine in and get it, I think I would. And also figure
Yeah.
out how I would charge it at my house.
Right.
So,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah.
Yeah, we have stations pretty close to us, but
I know I do too. There is one up the street at the park.
yeah.
But I would rather just plug it in overnight at my house.
Well, yeah, that too.
But
Can you
yeah,
just plug it into a regular outlet?
I think you have to get like a adapter, but yeah.
Okay.
I have
That's
a friend
cool.
who just charges it out of the plug in our house. So yeah,
Okay. Neat.
it just takes longer.
Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah.
And there's no portable way to charge these things? Because that seems like next.
I think that should be the next. That was something Sean and I were watching something on YouTube about guys were trying to take the Tesla truck off-roading, and they just couldn't get the range. And we're like, why doesn't it have a battery pack that you could just
Something.
You know, like you could have a
that
gas can.
seems, Yeah.
So why
Like
not
it
a
just
battery
seems obvious. Like
Yeah.
you can charge everything else that's electronic portably. Like you have a cord, or you have like some battery pack, or like
Solar powered
solar.
battery.
Like I don't
Yeah.
know, something. Yeah.
pack?
So interesting.
I think that's next.
Okay. Cool.
But yeah,
I
so EVs are better, and the government currently is all in on it, and I'm kind of all in on it too. I'm considering it myself. So
Nice.
yeah,
That's exciting.
that'll be my next big life change. My EV.
Yes. Love it. All right.
So next week, you are taking us on a journey through quote unquote clean diesel.
We'll just call it diesel.
Diesel, got it. Okay, I'm excited because this is something the European people I know talk about.
Okay. I'm really curious. Because my findings were interesting. So, all right. So follow us on Instagram at Greening on My Act if you haven't already.
Yep, and we will see you next week.